and I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivas, and all others in the line of devotion. Um, I believe we're on chapter 9, text 2 through 12 today. We can read the Sanskrit and English translation together. Text chapter 9, text 2. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyaksha Dharmyam Susukham Kartumavyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Text 3. Ashradhathana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes, but return to birth and death in this material world. Text 4. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakthamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta bhrinna champutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation. Text 6. Yatakshasha stito nityam vayu sarvatra mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstani tyuparaya. As the mighty wind, blowing everywhere, always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner, all beings rest in me. Text 7. Sarva bhutani konteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye punastani kalpado vishrijamyaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, every material manifestation enters into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again create. Text 8. Prakritim swamavastabhya vishrinjam punaha putagrama imam kritsnam avasham prakritir vashat. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will it is manifested again and again, and by my will it is annihilated at the end. Text 9. Nachamam tani karmani Nibadhanti Tananjaya Udasina Varasinam Asaktam Teshu Karmasu. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral. Text 10. Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kunteya Jagadviparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Text 11. Avajananti mamudhat manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Text 12. Mogha shamoga karmano mogha jnana vichestasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Back to text 2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Purport. This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. There are seven principal philosophers in India: Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Yajnavalkya, Sandilya, Vaishvanara, and finally Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge, the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body, and the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. So I'm going to speak a little bit from each paragraph because this is a long purport, and hopefully we can all learn something. All right. Maharaj, would you like to say anything? Does anybody have any comments or questions so far? So this text right here, so far it's talking about the difference, the king of education, which is to know that the body and the self are different. They're
one thing we learn here is that all the philosophical truths or correct points that are discovered by these other philosophers, these are the philosophers from India. We also have philosophers from the West who have also used their intelligence to try to figure out what's the goal of it all, or how is it working. But they're all included in the Vedas. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita, Gita Upanishad, summarizes all the Upanishads and gives a complete knowledge of Gyan. As you said, what is the body, or the Kshetra, what is the field, and what is the Kshetragya, knower of the field. And then there's the knower of the field, and then the knower of the field, that's the living entity. And then there's the Sarvagyetra Shucha, the one who's the knower of all living into all bodies, all fields. And that's Krishna. So he's the super soul. There's a distinction between living entity and matter. Matter was never alive and it won't be alive. Like today we were waiting someplace and they were having a cartoon and a snowman came alive. The children were playing with the snowman and he came alive. And so that's what we present now in our science courses. That you just play with these little bits of matter that are not alive, and somehow they become alive. That's it. That's the whole story. So we can see what's happening to our culture. This is what we teach the children. This is what we teach the adults, the students. So it's really need of overhaul, and therefore, just in time, Prabhupada came with the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Krishna came. And now we have a chance, at least those who are interested in not being part of the fool's paradise, who want to get out of this suffering place and come to the perfection of education, want some real knowledge, they can come here. It's a little small, our place, to accommodate all the souls, but Krishna can expand. He can make things bigger, and he can accommodate. After all, he's accommodating so many living entities in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is far greater than the material world. Sometimes they say Tripad Vibhuti, just to give a rough estimate of 3 times greater than the material universe. But Krishna can expand. So if we have a sincere desire to teach this Rajavidya, this king of education, then there are those who are really looking for something like this to find out perfection. Who am I? What's the purpose of life? Where did I come from? Where did I go after death? Who's God? Is there God? If God is there, was he? Why does he make it like this? So many questions, all answered very one by one, Bhagavad Gita, perfectly. And then when one has that knowledge, he's fixed in a good position. Now he can act without committing sinful activities. If he doesn't know the difference between matter and spirit, how can he be free from from sinful activities? He'll eat animals and think that it's all right. There's no difference between eating that and eating something else. He won't understand the law of karma, because the law of karma must include previous lives and future lives. If one doesn't accept the law of karma, or doesn't accept the soul being eternal, then how can he understand karma? And if he doesn't understand karma, how can he behave properly? So the whole thing is just, there's no way out of it. The only way out is to get in touch with the real devotee of the Lord, one who's actually practicing and who's authorized. And then if you're so fortunate to get that association, then you become his assistant. And you just offer yourself as an assistant. Whatever I can do to help, I'll be your student. Shishasteham Sharimam Prabhupada. That's what Arjuna said. Now I'm your student. I'm your disciple. Surrender to me. I surrender to you. Please instruct me. So Arjuna said, yes, now I'm your disciple, and you tell me what to do. I'm your assistant. That is real spiritual life. Not just you give your opinion, I give my opinion, and we'll see. We'll hash it out. No. There's no arguing with the spiritual master, because he's not presenting some speculative philosophy. He's presenting what the Lord has said. And he's understood it by realization. And how does that realization come? It comes from devotional service. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyasyasmi tatvata. Only by devotional service can I be understood as I am, Krishna says.
So this philosophy, these philosophies that have been propounded over the years, they're not as solid as this devotional service. They're not as well built, because it's based on speculation. There's one such philosopher who was named Kapila also, and he was an atheistic philosopher, and we know that atheism, it's not a solid basis of philosophy, because there has to be something that comes from nothing. Something doesn't come from nothing. So when we come to this philosophy, it's a breath of fresh air, because we've come from such a degraded background that everything is basically nothing. That's what we all think. This is what the atheistic philosophies, they all bring us to believe, is that something comes from nothing. I think, yeah, something comes from nothing. And it's the wrong way to think, because we can see that, what's it called? We can see that when we want to have a child, there has to be a man and a woman, and there can't be just the child that comes from the woman or from the man, but there has to be a coming together of those two people. So this is the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness, is that we come from the original creator, whose name is Krishna, and he is he's the original creator. He's the original Brahman, and he created everything. So we should try to learn about Krishna, because when we learn about Krishna, we learn about our true position. In the later in the purport, it talks about how this is the king of education, because when we learn about the soul and the soul's activities, that's the king of education, because yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to make a comment. I was inspired by what Maharaj said in junction with what you said. You're talking about atheist philosophies which have infiltrated into our modern day and age, prompting this idea that, in fact, something comes from nothing. So Maharaj gave a very nice analogy of the snowman. We take snow and we build a snowman, and all of a sudden the snowman comes to life, like Frosty the Snowman. It's a famous cartoon. Everybody watches it, this time of year, and you see it and you know it's fiction, you know it's fake. But the reason why Maharaj mentioned this is because this is what we're taught in our schools, that matter is manifested, and from matter comes life. So matter never creates life. because as you're talking, something doesn't come from nothing. We don't have any example in our experience in life. There are no examples. You can never find an example, and you will never find an example that something is produced from nothing, or that life comes from something that's inanimate or dead. And Prabhupada very vehemently spoke against this, against the scientists, who their favorite slogan is, just give us some more time, we will do it.
Yeah.
We'll create life, just give us some more time. But we could see that that's not the case. So here Krishna's giving this this knowledge, this supreme knowledge, the highest knowledge. She uses the word pavitram, pure. This is what we're seeking, this pure knowledge, because it brings us to our pure state, this transcendental state, which is Satchidananda. So then Krishna says in the last line, what's the word? Susuhyam kartamavyayam. This process is joyfully performed. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the joyful process of bhakti yoga.
Yeah. Well, there was the great thing about bhakti yoga is that we have this thing called prasadam, which is spiritual food that's been blessed by Krishna himself. And we also get to vibrate our tongue to chant Hare Krishna. So these two things, they come together, and we use them to preach, and we use them to glorify Krishna and talk about him, and help others come to him. So this is the joy that comes from devotional service. Not just that we're doing something and not getting any result from it. So everything that we do, it has an end result, it has an end goal. And when we work towards this end goal, this is what really fulfills us. It gives us meaning in our life. And yeah, this is basically what the devotional service brings. It brings us all joy. It brings us all happiness. It brings us fulfillment. It gives us a purpose to what's it called? To go on, to enjoy life. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment on this point. It's very nice what you're talking about. There's a word, sambandha. Sambandha means proper understanding of life's purpose. So you're talking about the positive side of knowing the sambandha, and every step we're making is approaching that. So every step is purposeful.
Mm.
On the flip side, without a proper understanding of sambandha, there's no happiness, because your life is never directed towards something that will actually lead you to fulfillment. And we could see this in the world where people, we walk out on the street and we ask many different people, what's their goal of life? People will look at you shocked. They'll say, oh, I want to pay my rent this month. I want to retire and go to the Bahamas. You probably get some really degraded things also. More degraded, at least. So without a proper understanding of sambandha, our energy is always misdirected, and it's leading towards something that actually is ensnaring us more to the material world one way or another. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, it's described in the forest of material enjoyment. The person, he goes out to the forest thinking he's going to find all these goods, all these products, he's going to harvest them, his life's going to be profitable, fruitful. And then, he sees this will-o'-the-wisp. Prabhupada uses this word will-o'-the-wisp. I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. It's like in a swamp, there's like a certain effect that happens where there's like a swamp water and swamp gas, and it makes like a luminescent, like a light up here. So, this is like the false hope. Everybody's just like chasing this false hope and getting stuck in this swampy, murky waters in this dark forest. So with a proper understanding of Sambandha, then we can approach properly, and you can see along the way with each and every step how you're advancing, how you've come further from where you were before, and you can also see where others are at on the journey also. So like Maharaj was mentioning, you approach somebody who's fixed in this knowledge, fixed in this way of life, and want to render service to them, and then they can bestow you with more spiritual advancement. It's not that you blindly guess, oh, this person's a bona fide guru, this person's spiritually advanced, this person's not. No, by you practicing and having proper knowledge, your eyes are opened and you can see it yourself. So it's a very important point. We're running out of time. Maybe we could read some more of the text in here
Yeah.
from Prabhupada.
Yeah. So we're on the second paragraph of the purport. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But there is, unfortunately, no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of this body. Without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. The Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter on, stresses the importance of the soul. In the very beginning, the Lord says that this body is perishable and that the soul is not perishable. That is a confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that spirit soul is different from this body and that its nature is immutable, indestructible, and eternal. But that gives no positive information about the soul. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body and that when the body is finished, or one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. But actually, that is not the fact. How can the soul, which is so active within this body, be inactive after being liberated from the body? It is always active. If it is eternal, then it is eternally active, and its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of all knowledge, the most confidential part of all knowledge. This knowledge is the purest form of all activities, as is explained in Vedic literature. In the Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. For instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately to grow. It takes some time. It is first a small, sprouting plant. Then it assumes the form of a tree. Then it flowers, bears fruit, and when it is complete, the flowers and fruits are enjoyed by persons who have sown the seed of the tree. Similarly, a man performs a sinful act, and like a seed, it takes time to fructify. There are different stages. The sinful action may have already stopped within the individual, but the fruit of that sinful action are still enjoyed. Which are still in the form of a seed, and there are others which are already fructified and are giving us fruit, which we are enjoying as distress and pain, as explained in the 20th verse of the 7th chapter. Of all sinful activities and who is fully engaged in pious activities. being freed from the duality of this material world, becomes engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, those who are actually engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reactions. For those who are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all sinful reactions, whether fructified in the stock or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong, and it is called Pavitram Uttamam, the purest. Uttamam means transcendental. Tamas means this material world or darkness, and Uttamam means that which is transcendental to material activities. Devotional activities are never to be considered material, although sometimes it appears that devotees are engaged just like ordinary men. One who can see and is familiar with devotional service, however, will know that they are not material activities. They are all spiritual and devotional, uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. This direct result is actually perceived, and we have practical experience that any person who is chanting the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in course of time feels transcendental pleasure and very quickly becomes purified of all material contamination. This is actually seen. Furthermore, if one engages not only in hearing but in trying to broadcast the message of devotional activities as well, or if he engages himself in helping the missionary activities of Krishna consciousness, he gradually feels spiritual progress. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. The method itself is so pure that by simply engaging in it, one becomes pure. In the Vedanta Sutra, this is also described in the following words: Prakashas cha karmanyabhyasat. Devotional service is so potent that simply by engaging in the activities of devotional service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. Narada, who happened to be the son of a maidservant, had no education, nor was he born into a high family. But when his mother was engaged in serving great devotees, Narada also became engaged, and sometimes, in the absence of his mother, he would serve the great devotees himself. Narada personally says, "Once only, by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time the very nature of the transcendentalist became very attractive to me." Bhagavatam 1.5.25. Narada tells his disciple Vyasadeva that in a previous life he was engaged as a boy servant of purified devotees during 4 months of their stay, and that he was intimately associating with them. Sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy, who would wash their dishes, wanted to taste the remnants. So he asked the great devotees whether he could eat them, and they gave their permission. Narada then ate those remnants and consequently became freed from all sinful reactions. As he went on eating, he gradually became as pure-hearted as the sages, and he gradually developed the same taste. The great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service of the Lord, hearing, chanting, etc. And by developing the same taste, Narada wanted also to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Thus, by associating with the sages, he developed a great desire for devotional service. Therefore, he quotes from the Vedanta Sutra, Prakashas cha karmanyabhyasat. If one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically, and he can understand. This is called prakasha, directly perceived. Narada was actually a son of a maidservant. He has no he had no opportunity to go to school. He was simply assisting his mother. And fortunately, his mother rendered some service to the devotees. The child Narada also got the opportunity and simply by association achieved the highest goal of all religions, devotional service. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that religious people generally do not know that the highest perfection of religion is the attainment of the knowledge of devotional service. Generally, Vedic knowledge is required for the understanding of the path of self-realization. But here, although he was not educated in the Vedic principle, Narada acquired the highest results of Vedic study. This process is so potent that even without performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. How is this possible? This is also confirmed in Vedic literature. Acharyavan Purusho Veda, one who is in association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has not studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. The process of devotional service is a very happy one. Why? Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. This is what you were asking. So what's that? Ah. Yes, Prabhu.
You all were saying before that nothing, that something can't come from nothing. But isn't matter is something, right?
Right.
So can't some matter in a favorable situation, certain chemicals and building blocks for life, can't they create life given the right amount of time and the right situation?
I'm trying to think of a example Prabhupada uses. So you said that if you have the building blocks, you can basically create something. Well, we've already seen in the scientific labs that we've asked them to create simply an egg. Prabhupada would say, just make an egg, and then I'll believe that that spirit comes from matter, or that living entities can come from limited potency or something like that. So Prabhupada said, just make an egg and make a chicken or something like that. But they couldn't do that. And Maharaj was also saying that, um, what did he say? He said that, I can't remember. What did he say, Prabhu? He said something about, yeah, give us time. That's what he said. That's what he said.
Just give us time, then we'll be able to do it. Just give us time.
Yeah. But but that doesn't, they always say we need more time. We we can do it, but they
Prabhupada,
can't even stop death.
Prabhupada would say they write a blank check.
Mm,
Yeah, post-dated
yeah.
check. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get it. You know, it'll come. It never comes.
Yeah, right? It never comes. They try to they can't even stop death, which is the end of the body. So how can they make another, they can't, so how can they make a whole new body with a brain, with a heart, with and ultimately the living soul that's inside of the body? So if they can't stop death, how are they possibly going to try to create life? Um yeah, I wish I knew more on that, but I hope that was enough. Yes, Prabhu?
Maharaj, at the end of his comments, he was talking about surrendering, the process of surrendering. And I was thinking how foreign that still, I've accepted him as my spiritual master, but still I'm like struggling with becoming the servant because all I really want to do is actually serve myself and meaning my senses. And it's also such a foreign principle to our society at large. It's totally against our conditioning where, we want to arrange a situation where it's going to be best for us. Of course, there's some genuine souls out there who try to work for others above themselves. But ultimately, I think I'm trying to work towards, surrendering to the servant of the servant of the servant, like Lord Chaitanya says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Gopi Bhartu Parakama or Das Anudas Anudas, and completely let go of my identity also of being man, white, American, so many other labels that are still subtly there. So anyway, his comment just really struck a chord with how much I'm fighting against becoming that, and I can imagine that it's also a struggle for others. So
Yeah, it's hard, but you're doing your best, so that's all you can do. Yeah, it's really hard to be this servant of the servant because we just want to be the best at everything, We don't believe that we have any limitations. We don't believe that we can't do something. But if we learn that we aren't, that we're nothing without the spiritual master, then we can become peaceful and happy. I remember there was one thing that Krishnendu was saying one time. He said that, I think it was something he said about Burijan Prabhu. He said that Burijan Prabhu said, we can't think of ourselves as servant of the servant. We want to be the most exalted. Even if we are a servant, we want to be the most exalted servant. So like, I want to be servant of Krishna. I don't want to be servant of the devotees or anybody like that. So that just shows us how, and then it's not just us in the Western world, it's everyone in China, in Africa, in India, in Tokyo, all these places, Puerto Rico. But all these places, everyone thinks that they're independent and that they can go on without help. But if we are honest with ourselves, then we realize that, okay, I need something, somebody, someone, anybody to help me with my problems because I can't do it on my own. So if we're a little thoughtful, we can realize that we need a little bit of help, and that little bit of help comes from the spiritual master. But thank you for your comment, Prabhu. I really appreciate it. Okay. Any other comments or questions at all? No? Okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.